I didn't know my future would shatter in a living room full of Christmas lights and forced smiles. I didn't know that the night everyone else called perfect would be the moment I finally stopped pretending. I was 29 years old, engaged, and convinced my life was already written. 3 years together, 6 months engaged, a spring wedding planned down to the smallest detail, deposits paid, invitations designed, a condo we bought together, a future that looked solid from the outside. That evening, my fiancée sat near the fireplace at my parents' house, laughing easily, wine glass in hand, glowing in a way I hadn't seen in months. She looked relaxed, confident, almost smug. You know, she said casually, eyes drifting toward me across the room, Christmas really is about miracles. My mother smiled, warm and proud. It certainly is. My fiancée took a slow sip of her wine, never breaking eye contact with me. Sometimes miracles are about new beginnings, she added softly, about choosing better. The word landed in my chest like a quiet explosion. I felt my pulse slow instead of spike, because I had already heard that word before, 3 weeks earlier, in a bathroom at her company's holiday party, whispered by two women who didn't know I was standing just out of sight. She said she's already decided, one of them had laughed. After Christmas, she's going to leave her. She said she chose better this time. Standing there by the tree, ornaments glowing softly, my fiancé thought she was being clever. She thought she was untouchable. She thought I was still in the dark, smiling like a woman who had no idea her engagement already had an expiration date. I wasn't. I lifted my glass and replied calmly, "Well, enjoy the season." She laughed, assuming she'd slipped a private joke past me. She had no idea that before dessert, I had already made a quiet phone call. Before gifts were cleared away, I had already sent an email. And before anyone in that room understood what was happening, I placed one small ornament on the table between us. Her phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. The color drained from her face so fast you could almost hear the silence crack. That was the moment I stopped protecting someone who had been planning to leave me the second the holidays were over. That was the moment I chose not to beg, not to confront, not to fall apart. This isn't a story about revenge. It's about timing, preparation, and the quiet power of a woman who realizes she has been underestimated. I was 29 when all of this happened, old enough to believe I understood commitment, young enough to think loyalty was automatic once you promised it. I worked hard, built a stable career that kept us comfortable, and took pride in being dependable. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't chasing titles or competing with anyone else's timeline. I believed in building a life steadily, brick by brick. She and I met 3 years earlier through mutual professional circles. She worked in marketing, confident, articulate, always thinking 2 steps ahead. When we started dating, the chemistry felt immediate and undeniable. She was ambitious in a way that felt exciting, like she could pull me into a bigger world. I admired her drive. She admired my steadiness, or at least, that's what she told me. Our relationship moved quickly, but not recklessly. We traveled, we hosted dinners, we talked about the future like it was already unfolding in front of us. When she proposed ideas, I listened. When I proposed stability, she nodded. It felt balanced, equal, modern. After 2 years together, we bought a condo. Both our names went on the deed. We split expenses down the middle, or so it appeared. I put down the entire down payment from an inheritance, $60,000 I'd saved and protected for years. She insisted her name be included. "We're building a life together," she said. "This proves you trust me." I did trust her. I agreed without hesitation. When she proposed 6 months later, friends congratulated us for doing things the right way. A woman proposing felt progressive, romantic. I said yes because I believed in us, not because I felt pressured. We booked a spring wedding, paid deposits, designed invitations. Our life felt settled, predictable in the best way. The first signs of trouble were subtle, small comments about my career, suggestions that I could aim higher, push harder, be more ambitious like the partners of her coworkers. Comparisons slipped into conversations casually, disguised as concern. "I just want you to want more," she'd say. I brushed it off as wedding stress. Everyone said planning a wedding tested relationships. Then she started guarding her phone, working late more often, taking calls in the other room, smiling at messages she wouldn't explain. I told myself I was being paranoid. 3 years doesn't disappear overnight. People don't sabotage their own future for no reason. But something in her had shifted. The way she spoke to me felt distracted, almost condescending at times, as if she'd already outgrown the life we were planning together. And I didn't realize it then, but by the time I was still planning a wedding, she was already planning an exit. Once doubt enters a relationship, it doesn't announce itself loudly. It settles in quietly, disguising itself as intuition you keep pushing away, because acknowledging it would force you to act. That was where I lived for weeks, a space between knowing and refusing to know. Her behavior changed in small, almost reasonable ways. She stayed later at work. She stepped outside to take calls. She started keeping her phone face down on the table, screen always locked, notifications muted. When I asked casual questions, she answered quickly but vaguely, as if she'd already rehearsed the response. Friends noticed too, even if they didn't say it outright. At dinners, she'd drift away mid-conversation, eyes flicking to her phone. She laughed more easily at things that had nothing to do with me. When I talked about the wedding, she responded politely, but without enthusiasm, like someone nodding along to a plan they no longer intended to follow. Her family remained warm toward me, which made everything more confusing. Her parents talked about grandchildren, about future holidays together, about how lucky we were to have found each other. I smiled, played my part, and ignored the growing tension in my chest. I didn't want to be the woman who invented problems where there were none. 3 weeks before Christmas, her company held its annual holiday party. Big venue, fancy hotel ballroom, open bar. She'd been talking about it for weeks, excited in a way that felt different from before. She bought a new dress, spent hours getting ready. I put on my best outfit and went with her, determined to show support, determined not to overthink. The party was fine at first. Her coworkers were friendly, professional. But I noticed how she kept steering me away from certain conversations, especially when one man from her department approached, tall, confident, the kind of presence that filled space effortlessly. Senior to her, or at least positioned above her. I caught them talking several times, standing just a little too close, laughing just a little too freely. Around 10, I went to the bar to grab us drinks. When I came back, she was standing by the fireplace with him and 2 of her friends. I heard her laugh before I saw her. That laugh, the one she used to reserve for me. When she noticed me approaching, there was no embarrassment, no hesitation. "Oh, there you are," she said lightly, taking the glass from my hand. "We were just talking about New Year's resolutions." The man glanced at me, then at her, smiling knowingly. Right, resolutions. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't name it yet. Later, near midnight, I went to the bathroom and overheard 2 women talking by the sinks. One of them was her closest friend from work. "I still can't believe she's going through with it," the other woman said. "She said she's already decided," her friend replied. "After Christmas, she's going to tell her. She didn't want to ruin the holidays. At least this way she gets one last nice one." "She's sure about him?" "Completely. She said she chose better this time. She's done settling." I stood there staring at my reflection, the words echoing in my head. Chose better. Done settling. In that moment, the seed of doubt stopped being a suspicion and became something solid, something undeniable. I didn't confront her at the party. I didn't storm over. I didn't expose her in front of her coworkers or demand explanations in a ballroom full of strangers. I walked back out into the noise with my face composed and my heartbeat loud in my ears, carrying the kind of knowledge that changes how you stand, how you breathe, how you look at the person you thought you knew. She was still by the fireplace when I returned. Same group, same man standing close, his shoulder angled toward hers, like it belonged there. I approached slowly, careful not to let my voice shake. "Ready to head out?" I asked. She turned, already annoyed. "It's not even midnight. I have something early tomorrow." She rolled her eyes. "Right, your thing." Then she turned back to her coworkers and laughed. "She's always got something." The man smiled. "Well, don't let us keep you." The drive home was silent. She scrolled on her phone the entire time, smiling at the screen in a way that made my stomach tighten. When we got to the condo, she went straight to the bedroom without a word. I stayed in the living room, sitting in the dark, replaying the bathroom conversation again and again until the meaning settled into my bones. The next morning, I did something I'm not proud of. While she was in the shower, I picked up her phone. My hands were steady, but my chest felt hollow. I didn't search wildly. I didn't hesitate. The messages were there, months of them, conversations with the man from the party, plans disguised as jokes, complaints about me, about how I was comfortable, predictable, safe, how she needed more, how these moments with him made her feel alive. The most recent message, sent at 2 in the morning, sat at the bottom of the screen. Can't wait until you're finally free. This time next month will be ringing in the new year properly. I took screenshots, sent them to myself, deleted the evidence of my looking, put the phone back exactly where I found it. Then I sat on the edge of our bed for a long time, staring at the floor, letting the truth settle without resistance. I could have confronted her then, thrown the phone at her, demanded answers, but I already knew how that conversation would go. She would deny, minimize, reframe, make me doubt what I had just seen with my own eyes. So instead, I stayed quiet. For the next 2 weeks, I prepared. I contacted a lawyer friend and asked hypothetical questions. I gathered financial documents. I documented who paid for what. I learned about engagement ring laws, about property division, about what was mine, even if she tried to claim otherwise. And by the time Christmas Eve arrived, I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. Christmas Eve arrived wrapped in tradition and pretending. We drove to her parents' house just before sunset, the sky already dark, the streets glowing with lights and decorations. She reached for my hand in the car, squeezing it lightly, performing affection with the ease of someone who had already decided how this story would end. I let her, not because I still believed in us, but because I needed her calm. I needed her unsuspecting. Her parents welcomed us warmly. Her siblings and their partners filled the house with noise and laughter. Everyone congratulated us on the upcoming wedding, asked about colors, menus, dates. She smiled beautifully, played her role flawlessly, kissed my cheek in front of everyone like we were the picture of happiness. I smiled too. My face didn't betray me, but my body felt strangely detached, like I was watching myself from a distance. When we got home around 10, she said she was tired and went straight to bed. She kissed my forehead and whispered, "Merry Christmas," as if nothing in our life was about to collapse. I told her I'd stay up and watch a movie. She didn't question it. She never did when she thought she was in control. I waited 30 minutes. Then I stepped into the hallway and made a quiet phone call to my lawyer friend, leaving a message that I would need his services starting next week. My voice didn't shake. After that, I walked to the Christmas tree and searched for a specific ornament. The one we bought the year we moved into the condo. White ceramic, simple lettering. Our first Christmas in our home. I took it off the tree and placed it carefully in the center of the coffee table. No note, no explanation, just the ornament. A symbol of something she had already decided to abandon. Christmas morning was surreal. She woke up cheerful, made coffee, suggested we open gifts. We sat by the tree in matching pajamas she had bought for photos, playing house one last time. She gave me a watch. Expensive, thoughtful looking. I gave her a necklace I'd bought months earlier, before I knew. She put it on immediately and took a selfie. "Best fiancé ever," she captioned it online. We drove to my parents' house for Christmas dinner. My entire family was there, the fireplace roaring, decorations everywhere, warmth layered over everything. She was charming, helpful, perfect. After dinner, we moved into the living room. My dad poured drinks. My mom brought out dessert. She sat near the fireplace, wine glass in hand, laughing. Then she looked at me and said, "Christmas really is about miracles." I took a sip of my drink. "Enjoy the season," I replied calmly. She smiled, thinking she was still winning. That was when I sent the email. I sent the email while everyone was still smiling. I had prepared it earlier that morning, sitting alone at the kitchen table while she slept peacefully in the next room. I titled it simply, "Christmas Miracles." Inside were screenshots, not commentary, not accusations, just facts. Months of messages between her and her coworker, plans, jokes at my expense. The line about waiting until she was finally free. The quiet cruelty of someone planning an exit while pretending to build a future. I blind copied her parents, her siblings, a few close friends. I didn't want her to see the recipient list. I wanted the truth to arrive all at once, without warning, the same way it had for me. Then I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the ornament. I placed it gently on the coffee table in front of her. Our first Christmas in our home. "I forgot to pack this earlier," I said evenly. She frowned, picked it up, confused. "What?" Her phone buzzed. Then buzzed again, and again. The room shifted. My mother's smile froze mid-expression. My father straightened in his chair. My brother leaned forward, sensing something was wrong. My fiancée stared at her phone, color draining from her face as she scrolled. "What is it?" my mom asked softly. She stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You," she started, her voice shaking. "You went through my phone. That's illegal." My brother said it before I could. "That's deflection." Her phone rang. Her mother's name lit up the screen. She looked at me, then at the phone, then at the faces around her. She grabbed her purse and ran out of the house without another word, heels clicking in frantic rhythm against the floor. The front door slammed. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my mother gasped. My father stood. My grandmother, bless her, shook her head and said quietly, "Good riddance." I sat back down, my hands steady, my heartbeat calm in a way that surprised even me. My brother poured me another drink and slid it across the table. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," I said honestly. "I really am." That night, she called 43 times, sent messages that swung wildly between apologies, rage, and desperation. I didn't answer. Her mother called. I picked up that one. "What you did was cruel," she said. "What your daughter did was worse," I replied calmly. "But thank you for calling." Silence. "Merry Christmas," I added, and hung up. By morning, she had come back to the condo, taken her clothes and personal items, and left the engagement ring on the counter with a note. "You win." I picked up the ring and slipped it into my pocket. This wasn't about winning. It was about being done. The house felt different after she left. Not empty exactly, just hollowed out, like the echo of something that had already died but hadn't been buried yet. I stood alone in the kitchen, the engagement ring heavy in my pocket, staring at the counter where she'd left it as if it were a final insult wrapped in jewelry. That was when it hit me. Not the anger, not the satisfaction, the grief. It came quietly, the way real pain always does. My hands started shaking as I sat down on the floor, my back against the cabinet, breathing shallowly like my body didn't trust the air anymore. I wasn't crying for her. I was crying for the version of myself who believed love meant loyalty would be returned automatically. For the woman who planned a wedding while the other person planned an escape. I replayed everything. Every moment I'd brushed off, every comparison I'd swallowed, every time I'd convinced myself I was being dramatic for feeling uneasy. I asked myself the question I had avoided for months. What did I ignore because I didn't want to lose her? The answer hurt more than the betrayal. I ignored myself. The messages she sent that night went unanswered. Apologies blurred into accusations. Promises turned into threats. I didn't read them closely. I didn't need to. I already knew the cycle. Cry, deny, blame, rewrite history. If I stayed engaged, she'd keep pulling me back into chaos, and I couldn't afford that anymore. Around 3 a.m, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the silence pressing in on me. I wondered if I'd gone too far, if exposing her in front of family had crossed some invisible line. The doubt was relentless. It whispered that I was cruel, that I could have handled it privately, that I had become the villain in someone else's story. But then another thought followed, sharper and steadier. She was going to leave me anyway, right after Christmas, after one more round of gifts, photos, smiles, after letting me believe we were still building something together. She was going to walk away quietly, while I was left wondering what I'd done wrong. That realization anchored me. The darkest moment wasn't the exposure. It was understanding how close I'd come to being erased from my own life without my consent. How easily my future could have been rewritten by someone who saw me as something to settle for. By morning, the grief was still there, but it had changed shape. It was no longer pulling me apart. It was hardening into resolve. I wasn't broken. I was awake. The turning point didn't arrive with a dramatic revelation or a sudden surge of confidence. It arrived quietly, the morning after everything collapsed, when I woke up and realized I wasn't afraid anymore. I stood in the shower longer than usual, letting the water run, feeling it hit my shoulders, my spine, my hands. My body felt heavy, but my mind was clear. For the first time in months, there was no anticipation of confrontation waiting for me outside the bathroom door. No performance to maintain, no lies to navigate around. The chaos had already happened, and somehow I had survived it intact. I made coffee and sat at the table alone. The condo was silent, but it wasn't threatening anymore. It felt neutral, temporary, like a space that had finished serving its purpose in my life. That morning, I called my lawyer friend and told him everything. Not hypotheticals this time. Facts. screenshots, the ring, the note. He listened, then let out a low laugh, not because it was funny, but because from a legal standpoint, everything was suddenly very simple. "She's not going to have much leverage," he said. "With proof of infidelity, the engagement dissolves cleanly. The ring is yours, and the condo, your down payment is traceable. You'll get it back before anything else is divided." Hearing that didn't make me feel victorious. It made me feel grounded. For weeks, I had been emotionally preparing for loss. Now I understood that I wasn't losing everything. I was reclaiming what was always mine. Later that day, she tried to reach out again. A single message this time. No anger, no theatrics. "Can we please talk? I need to explain." I stared at the screen for a long moment. In the past, I would have responded instantly. I would have wanted clarity, closure, reassurance that the 3 years we shared meant something to her. But standing there in my kitchen, sunlight cutting across the floor, I finally understood something fundamental. Explanations don't change choices. She hadn't slipped. She hadn't panicked. She hadn't made a single mistake. She had planned this, carefully, patiently, right down to waiting until after Christmas so she wouldn't ruin the holidays. That wasn't confusion. That was intention. I didn't reply. That was the moment the power shifted completely, not because I had embarrassed her, not because she lost control of the narrative, but because I stopped needing her understanding in order to move forward. I wasn't walking away in anger. I was walking away in alignment with myself. And once I made that decision, there was no urge left to look back. The fallout didn't explode all at once. It unfolded slowly, like a structure collapsing after the support beams are quietly removed. At first, it was paperwork, phone calls, emails, documents sliding across tables, the kind of aftermath that feels sterile on the surface but carries the weight of years beneath it. We began the legal process within days. Dissolving the engagement was straightforward. The ring, legally and symbolically, returned to me. I held it once before placing it in a drawer, not out of sentimentality, but as evidence of a promise broken long before I chose to end it. The condo was more complicated, but facts have a way of clarifying things. Both our names were on the deed, but the down payment, $60,000 from my inheritance, was traceable. Non-marital contribution. Those words mattered. They meant I wasn't losing myself financially on top of everything else. She tried to regain control of the narrative. Texts at first, then calls, then messages through mutual friends. Some were apologetic, others defensive, a few openly angry. She said the messages had been taken out of context. She said I humiliated her. She said I didn't have to do it like that. I listened to none of it. I had already heard the truth in her own words, months' worth of them, typed without hesitation when she thought I would never see. Her parents were quieter after Christmas. Her mother called once more, less accusatory this time, more tired. She asked if there was any way to fix things. I told her the truth. "Your daughter decided to leave me weeks ago. I just made sure the truth arrived before she could rewrite it." She didn't argue. Silence has a way of admitting what words cannot. Workplace consequences followed. The coworker she'd been seeing was engaged to someone else in a different department. When those emails reached the wrong inboxes, everything unraveled. His engagement ended. He was fired shortly after for inappropriate workplace conduct. The affair that had felt so exciting and secret collapsed under daylight. She lost more than she expected. Reputation, stability, the future she thought she'd carefully lined up. She moved out of the condo completely, took a few belongings, left the rest behind as if distance could erase memory. I didn't rush her. I didn't chase closure. I focused on logistics, not emotion. 3 weeks later, everything was settled. Accounts separated, paperwork signed, the condo put on the market. Clean, legal, final. The fallout landed where it belonged, not through revenge, not through shouting, through consequences. And I watched it all from a distance, not with satisfaction, but with clarity. Because once the truth is exposed, it doesn't need your help to do damage. It simply stands there, undeniable. 4 months have passed since that Christmas, and my life doesn't look the way I once planned it to. It looks quieter, smaller in some ways, but it feels honest in a way I didn't realize I had been missing. The condo sold quickly. Good timing, good market. After everything was divided, I walked away with my down payment returned and a portion of the equity, enough to start over without panic, enough to remind myself that choosing dignity doesn't mean choosing loss. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment downtown. It's mine. No shared closets, no silent resentment, no future being negotiated behind my back. The wedding never happened. The venue refunded most of the deposit once I provided proof of infidelity. Invitations were quietly discarded. Dresses returned. Plans dissolved. It hurt, but not in the way I expected. It felt less like losing something and more like stepping away from a performance I'd been rehearsing for someone who had already left the audience. She moved back in with her parents after everything unraveled. Lost her job not long after. The scandal followed her in ways she didn't anticipate. The man she left me for disappeared the moment secrecy turned into consequence. I heard she's trying to rebuild her life now. I don't wish her harm. I simply no longer carry responsibility for her choices. I agreed to meet her once, weeks later, at a coffee shop. She looked exhausted, smaller somehow. She said she was sorry, that she never meant to hurt me. I told her the truth. You didn't mean to get caught. That's different. She cried, asked what happened to love. I reminded her that love doesn't coexist with months of planning someone's replacement. I paid for my coffee and left. That was the last time I saw her. I'm dating again now, slowly, without urgency, without the pressure of proving anything to anyone. It feels different when you're not competing with someone your partner won't admit exists. It feels lighter when honesty isn't something you have to beg for. I kept the ornament, our first Christmas in our home, not because I miss her, but because it reminds me of something important. Home isn't a place you share with someone who sees you as temporary. Home is where you're respected, where you're chosen fully, where you don't have to shrink to be loved. People have asked if I regret how publicly it ended, if I feel guilty for exposing the truth before she could leave quietly and rewrite the story. I don't. She planned to end my life as I knew it without my consent. I simply changed the timing and refused to be erased politely. Here's the lesson I carry forward. If someone tells you they chose better, believe them. Believe that they were never choosing you to begin with. And when that moment comes, don't beg them to stay. Don't ask for explanations designed to soothe their guilt. Choose yourself, calmly, completely, without apology. That was my real Christmas miracle.